What's up, YouTube? Big Dog here, back again for another edition of Big Dog Movie Reviews. Today we're reviewing a film that's pretty near and dear to my heart and something I've been looking forward to for months. Being a car person, you can only assume that said film is Ford vs. Ferrari today. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this film for months. I had pretty high hopes for it, so let's get into it, see if it actually lived up to those hopes. So, same format as always, likes, dislikes, final score, final comments. Miranda, what a great co-host, honestly. Never gives me any trouble. So, let's go into it. Ford vs. Ferrari for the likes. The cars, first off, and first and foremost. They did a good job of showing the differences, and like, in the GT40 especially, it was obviously is the car they focused most attention on, so the car Ford won with was the GT40. And I believe it's the Mark IV that actually did the job for them for the first time in '66, which is the one that gets the most attention. But even the car itself makes not only mechanical changes, obviously, but visible changes as well from the Mark I to the Mark IV. You can very easily see the changes in that car, which I thought was a very I kind of want to say small detail, but that's not true. But just a point that shows that they're trying to be true to the story at some respect. I'm just trying to do the original GT40 and Ford justice through that building and editing of the vehicle. The racing was really well done, as I sure hope so, considering it's a film about racing. They did a good job of making you feel you were in the race and in the race cars, especially in the GT40 with Ken Miles behind the wheel, played by Christian Bale. It really felt like you were just riding shotgun with him, and every time he was in the car. And even in a scene in particular, Matt Damon took the wheel and spun around with Henry Ford II. This did a really good job making you feel like you were in the car. I haven't gotten to it yet, but semi-spoilers. Just as kind of a scene here that some who aren't familiar with the story wouldn't see coming. But that's I mentioned that in the dislikes, but that's coming. Christian Bale had a standout performance. No one really did bad, to say, but Christian Bale did extra good. Ken Miles was just such a polarizing character of his time, and this is the way he acted, his attitude, that they had to make sure someone did him justice, and Christian Bale definitely did a good job with the role. And a couple of people I was talking to about this film were uneasy about Matt Damon playing the legendary Carroll Shelby, but I think Matt Damon did a good job. I have nothing against him for the role, but like I said, Christian Bale just kind of was a step above everyone else in the film. And I like to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff, and what I mean by that is behind-the-scenes of the race. So all the business end of things, and just the logistics of who's in charge of the race team from the business standpoint, things of that nature. And on top of that, building on that, because of that, you get to see a feud that's kind of like Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby versus the suits, or the business side of the business people. Made for a very interesting relationship between the three entities. Ken and Carroll were definitely just trying to go hard, win the race, do everything they could to bring victory to Ford. But the business people were kind of more, obviously they wanted to win too, but they were a lot more concerned with the image of the company, more so than Ken and Carroll were. So, the fact that they had a common goal, again, as I've said in the reviews, they have a common goal, but a different idea of a path to reach that goal. And I think that'll always just make for an interesting relationship in movies. And it just made for an interesting relationship between all three of those, because even Ken and Carroll feud at specific points in the film. And the source of their feud is mostly the suits and the business side people, because they're like it almost turns the two against each other, and it forms a very interesting relationship dynamic between those three entities of the movie. That's it for the likes. Now for the dislikes, as always. Now, as I've said before, I like my based on true stories to be more or less a retelling. Just more or less be the movie, on the actual events on screen. I like it to be as factual as possible. And with that being said, I know it took actually 3 years for Ford to beat Ferrari. It took 3 separate races. But I don't know if unless I missed something pretty major in the film, which I kind of doubt. But in the movie, they portrayed it to only take 2 years, which is historically inaccurate. And gonna chalk that up in the dislike column because, as I've said, I like it to be historically accurate as possible, and that, for obvious reasons, is not accurate. The ending, excuse me, ending was pretty weak. It was definitely solid up until a point. The ending just drowned on for way too long. I wouldn't even say way too long, just too long. I'd say the last 10-ish minutes, and maybe not even that, 5 minutes was a little unnecessary. There's a scene where Ken Miles' death happens, which is kind of the semi-spoiler I was talking about earlier. And they have a camera shot of the car going off the road and everything like it did, and crashing and dying, and everyone rushing to help him. And the camera kind of pans into that, as well as this like wicker cowboy hat Ken would always wear sitting on a cooler. And I think right there is when it should have ended and had the whole blah 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 blah. Ford is still the only car to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans, like the actual telling of the events and the words right at the end. I think that would have been a really cool ending of the film with a really cool shot of everyone rushing to help Ken as he's dying, to put it bluntly, but it's what was happening. And then the sun going down with his straw hat on the cooler, and then the words coming up on the screen saying Ken Miles died in a crash, blah, 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 blah. And I just think, I'm like, not trying to toot my own horn here, but I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of what this scene could have been. And I thought it would have been a really powerful and meaningful way to end the film, whereas the last 5 minutes, it's like very unnecessary in my eyes. So I think it was the ending, have me at the helm, could have been a lot better. You know, I know what I'm talking about here. I mention endings quite a bit on these movie reviews, so I know a thing or two about good endings in my mind. But the last dislike is the soundtrack wasn't great. I wouldn't call it bad, but it wasn't this. I wouldn't say it was standout. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. It was just kind of, it was alright, I guess. So, as I've said, a soundtrack's always a big part of a movie for me. So, pretty much if a soundtrack is anything less than great, I feel the need to mention it. So, I think they could have done a lot better. Especially in some scenes, they're trying to keep it like period accurate to like 60s music, which I can appreciate, but they chose 60s music, which I feel didn't work with the respective scenes they were put in. So I think the soundtrack could have been done a little bit better as well as the ending. The ending could have done a lot better, soundtrack could have been done a little better. But with all that being said, it was definitely... Sorry, still getting over this cold a little bit. It was most definitely a good film in every way, shape, and form. And I believe with that, it deserves a very reputable 8 out of 10. The film as a whole is very well done, with the exception of the ending and the soundtrack. But the ending and the soundtrack especially, I would say the only thing I have against the movie is the ending. So that could have been what was holding it back from a 9 in my eyes, as well as the soundtrack. Can't really deduct too much for that, because like I said, it wasn't even bad, it just wasn't great. But I thought it was a very well done film. Could be me being biased, since I am such a car nut, but I do know someone else who sees way more movies than I could ever dream of, has this in his top 10 of the year, so there must be some truth to it being that good. And for car people, it is a must-see. I would probably can't view you as a real car person unless you see this film. Just because there aren't a lot of movies that are made strictly for car people to enjoy. But this is one of them, and since they're so few and far between, all car folks just have to see this movie. And even with that being said, I think there's still a lot to love here for non-car fans. Obviously, the car people will enjoy it a little bit more, but people who are just looking for a good film in general could still see this and have no idea about cars and probably still get a lot of enjoyment out of it. They would probably put it at maybe 6 or 7 in my eyes, but that's still better than the average film. For someone who's going into seeing this film and have no prior knowledge on the topic, I think that's pretty solid score in my mind. But that's all I got today. Ford vs. Ferrari, 8 out of 10. That's your review. It's going in the book. If you like what you see, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you want to comment, tell me your thoughts, what you like, what you didn't like, if you thought I was right, if you thought I was wrong, if you thought it was better than what I thought, if you thought it was worse than what I thought. Please let me know. I like to know your thoughts. I welcome all challengers. While you're commenting, you might as well subscribe too. I do movie reviews at least once a week, sometimes a little more frequently than that, depending how many movies I'm watching. So any movie fan, obviously subscribe to the channel. I think you'll like what I'm putting out. And then, as always, if you're looking to get a little more involved in the channel, do follow the corresponding Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd videos. The handle/username for all three of those is @BigDogMR79. As always, I'll put it on the screen at the end of the video. That's all I got. I'll see you at the next movie review, but until then, change the world. You can do it. I do believe in you. You can change the world for the better, even if you are one person. If no one believes in you, I will. But that's all I got. I will see you at the next movie review. See you guys later. And as always, like I said, change the world.